The moment that changed everything happened in the soft, unforgiving light of a grocery store aisle, where choices were reduced to what you could afford and what you could live without. A young mother stood frozen beside the baby formula shelf, her hands trembling as she slowly returned a tin of milk to its place, blinking back tears she thought no one noticed. A few steps away, a man who owned more than most people could imagine watched that single act of quiet surrender, and for reasons he didn't yet understand, he couldn't look away. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of small moments to change lives, take a second right now to like this video. Share it with someone who needs hope, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps stories like this reach hearts that need them. The man's name was Julian Cross, a self-made millionaire whose face had appeared on business magazines and finance podcasts, praised for his discipline, vision, and relentless work ethic. He had grown up with very little, but somewhere along the way, success had wrapped itself around him like armor, insulating him from the daily struggles of people he passed without seeing. That afternoon, he wasn't shopping for himself. He had ducked into the store between meetings, sent by an assistant who had forgotten to order supplies for a charity gala. Julian moved through the aisles distractedly, already planning his next call, when he noticed the woman. She was young but worn down in a way that went beyond age. Her clothes were clean but faded, her shoes scuffed at the toes. One arm cradled a small infant bundled in a thin blanket. The other clutched a shopping basket that held little more than bread, a pack of noodles, and a few discounted vegetables. Julian noticed the way she stared at the formula, reading the label again and again, as if hoping the price might change if she looked long enough. When she finally placed it back on the shelf, her shoulders sagged in defeat. She closed her eyes for a brief second, took a breath, and turned away. Julian felt an unexpected tightness in his chest. He had negotiated million-dollar deals without flinching, yet the image of that woman haunted him. He watched as she walked slowly toward the checkout, her steps heavy, as though each one required effort she barely had left. Something urged him to act, to step forward and do something obvious, something simple. But instead, he hesitated. Years of caution, of avoiding complications, held him back. He paid for his items quickly, his mind racing, and then, against his usual habits, he followed her out of the store. Outside, the late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the cracked pavement. The woman adjusted the baby on her shoulder and walked toward a bus stop at the edge of the parking lot. Julian kept his distance, feeling strangely nervous, as if he were trespassing into a life he didn't belong to. He watched her wait, rocking the baby gently, her eyes scanning the road not with impatience but with worry. When the bus arrived, she climbed aboard, counting coins in her palm. Julian surprised himself by getting on the same bus, ignoring the confused look from his driver who was used to seeing him arrive in sleek cars, not public transport. The bus rattled through neighborhoods that grew quieter and more worn with every stop. Julian studied the passing streets, noticing peeling paint, closed shops, and children playing near buildings that had seen better days. When the woman finally stood to get off, he followed again, his heart pounding now, not with fear, but with an unfamiliar sense of responsibility. She walked several blocks to a small apartment complex with broken lights and cracked stairs. Julian watched as she fumbled with her keys, balancing the baby, exhaustion etched into every movement. He didn't approach her that day. Instead, he returned to his car, his thoughts heavy, the image of the formula tin replaying in his mind. That night sleep eluded him. He lay awake in his spacious home, surrounded by comforts he barely noticed anymore, wondering how many times he had passed moments like that without seeing them. He thought about hunger, about pride, about how close desperation lived to dignity. The next morning, he did something he hadn't done in years. He cleared his schedule. Over the following days, Julian learned about the woman without ever speaking to her. He discovered her name was Elena through a community notice board near the apartments. She was a single mother who had moved there after escaping an abusive relationship, working part-time cleaning offices at night while caring for her baby during the day. Childcare was too expensive. Support was limited. Every dollar was stretched thin. Julian felt a growing mix of admiration and sorrow. She was doing everything she could, and still it wasn't enough. One evening, Julian returned to the grocery store and stood in the same aisle where he had first seen her. He picked up a tin of baby milk, feeling its weight in his hands, thinking about how something so essential could be out of reach for someone who needed it most. That was the moment he decided to stop watching from a distance. He didn't want to be a silent observer anymore. He began by speaking with local community organizers, funding a small program to support single parents with essentials. He made sure it was discreet, structured in a way that preserved dignity rather than announcing charity. Within a week, care packages began appearing at the apartment complex, addressed simply and respectfully. Elena received hers one morning, finding baby milk, diapers, fresh food, and a handwritten note reminding her that she was not alone. Julian imagined her expression and felt something shift inside him, something long dormant. But the real change came when he finally met her. Julian arranged for a community meeting under the guise of evaluating the program's impact. Elena attended reluctantly, her baby resting peacefully against her chest. Julian listened as she shared her struggles with quiet honesty, speaking not for sympathy, but for the hope that things might improve for others like her. He felt humbled. This was not a woman defined by need, but by resilience. As weeks turned into months, Julian's involvement deepened. He helped expand the program, creating job opportunities with flexible hours for parents, funding childcare initiatives, and offering educational support. Elena found steadier work through the program, her confidence growing as the pressure eased. The baby thrived, healthy and warm, no longer missing what he needed to grow. Julian found himself visiting the neighborhoods he once ignored, learning names, stories, and struggles. His wealth, once a measure of success, became a tool for connection. He realized that following Elena that day had led him not just to her world, but back to his own humanity. The armor he had built began to crack, letting compassion through. One afternoon, months later, Julian stood outside the same grocery store. He watched as Elena emerged, her posture lighter, her smile real. Her basket was fuller this time, not excessive, but enough. She walked with purpose, her baby now giggling softly, unaware of how close his life had once come to scarcity. Julian felt tears sting his eyes, not from sadness, but from gratitude for the lesson he had been given. Just before the story ends, take a moment to comment below and tell us what part of this journey moved you the most. Your words matter, and they help keep stories like this alive. As Julian returned to his car, he understood that true wealth wasn't measured in numbers or possessions, but in the lives you touched and the moments you chose not to ignore. He had followed a struggling mother out of curiosity, but what he found was a path toward purpose. Elena never knew the full extent of how close Julian had come to walking past her that first day, and perhaps she didn't need to. What mattered was that one quiet act of noticing had grown into something powerful enough to change many lives. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that compassion can begin with a single glance and grow into lasting change, please like this video, share it with others, and leave a comment. Subscribe to the channel for more stories that remind us of the good still possible in this world. Sometimes, following someone for the right reasons leads you exactly where you were meant to be.